We had a bit of behind the scenes there, and I was asking if we'd watched any of the golf over the weekend, and I forgot that Kimbo and Jordan took along. I mean, I was expecting you to come home a lot earlier on a Sunday night, and you didn't.
Well, do you know whose idea that was?
Yours.
It wasn't mine.
It was God.
What
God
time?
was sending me a message.
But
He
what
said,
time did
"You
you
need
get
to
in for?
watch. You need to watch the Waste Management Phoenix Opens final."
Yeah, well, it's a big event, somewhat at the start of the year. Obviously, it's got the iconic par 3 hole. But apart from that, this episode we're going to focus on strokes gained, episode 18, I think, which is pretty mental now.
Mhm.
I'm feeling a bit better than last week. Last week I was all over the place. I was running on 1% battery and on high alert all day. And what was supposed to be 45 minutes turned into 57 minutes. Didn't make me stress out at all, don't worry. Um, so we're going to try and do, instead from the outset, we're trying to do a more condensed version of, what we're going to speak about today. Whether that actually is the case, we'll find out. But I feel like we've talked about strokes gained quite a lot in terms of stats. The name of the podcast is Strokes Gained, and actually, like when I go home and stuff, and I family or friends who listen to the podcast who aren't huge golfers, maybe they're casual weekend golfers or maybe just summer, they go, what does strokes gained actually mean? And maybe made me think maybe we're making some assumptions that people just understand what strokes gained means. Um, I know maybe I do in some instances as well, so I'm hoping to learn something today from Jordan, Rob, and maybe even Campbell.
Have to lose strokes.
I'll find out. But how to lose strokes, yeah.
It is
Um,
surprising that we only did this podcast on number 19.
18, don't worry, Rob, we're 18, I think. It
Oh
might be
yeah, sorry,
19.
getting ahead of
Making it
myself
so
here.
much better.
So, so we're going to talk about what it is, why it matters, and what you can take away from today in terms of strokes gained. But before we get into that, let's get into the golf and Jordan and Kempo and Rob as well. You probably saw a bit of it, although you were playing on Sunday, which is always good. So, Jordan, I'll go to you first.
Let's start with the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Me and Ken watched it together actually on Sunday night. It was a little bit exciting, um, but there were some good shots towards the end. Chris got all right, made up and down from a silly position. He actually, when he hit his tee shot on 18, had a 0.7% chance of winning the tournament because I think he was like two back or something like that of Matsuyama. To do that,
0.7. Wow.
0.7% chance when he hit his 18th tee shot. He did finish with five birdies in his last six holes and then birdied the first playoff hole. So that's pretty good.
That's not bad, really.
That's pretty good.
With that swing generating 125-mile-an-hour head club speed, he's doing just fine. And he actually rolls the rock, by the way.
Just
He
roll the rock.
puts
Yeah.
really well. Couple falling off. Scotty Shepherd gave everyone a chance by shooting two over in the first round. And
Yeah,
then came
I mean,
back and finished
on
top five.
Friday we watched a little bit of it, and I think he just finished his front nine, and you're like, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes and shoots 4 under here, makes the cut, and then puts himself 5 shots from contention, and that's what he did.
Yeah, he was right there. We turned the TV on and we saw his name on the leaderboard and we're like, you can't keep this guy down. He's pretty special.
He was one back at one stage at like 14 under. I think he finished 14.
Yeah, just missed a couple of bit on the way. He hit it 340 yards down the last hole and had how far in?
Get a flick in. I think
Had
I
a
Yeah,
saw
flick.
like
he did hit a great
75
shot.
yards.
And then he hit quite a poor pitch shot by his standards. I think he expected to kind of one big bounce and then check, and it checked up to about 25 feet and didn't give himself a chance. But um, insane still.
Yeah. Matsuyama, did you see the guy on the playoff where someone dropped a chair and he had to stop halfway through his downswing? Unbelievable.
Crazy.
Also,
Absolutely
his putt on
unbelievable.
18, someone shouted, "Get in the hole" while he was
Yeah,
over it.
honestly. Yeah. But yeah, the shot of the bunker hitting the lip and then hitting it into the water and then
Oh,
and the other, he
the
almost hit
drama.
the wall on 17 as well. Like,
He missed apparently 12 fairways on Sunday,
yeah,
He's
he hit two
driving.
fairways. Yeah.
and he was bogey free until
Until the
that
last.
last hole,
I know.
and that was his first bogey today.
Two
And his
fairways.
driving was you just didn't know where it was going to go, and there was a shot when he put himself behind a tree that was like kind of coming out of a weird angle, and he hit probably the shot of the tournament to middle of the green, and then, but he was putting himself in these situations and making pars and making birdies. But obviously that under the pressure doesn't last. So
Yeah, the 13th, he hit 3-wood from 242 yards off the hard pan, big slice to about 50 feet and two putt for his birdie. And I was like, wow,
mhm.
he was 30 yards off the fairway.
Weirdly
You see
right,
that?
and then the last he missed it left. So you had all sorts going on.
Do you think
The
they listened
two-way
to the
miss for
podcast
Hideki
last week
Matsuyama.
about driving accuracy and how it's a little bit overrated? Do you think that's what happened?
Yeah, he wasn't
I
listening to
mean,
the one-way miss though. So
yeah. I mean, this is exactly what we meant. He must have been listening last week. Don't hit fairways, just hit it long.
Mhm. Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
just hit driver, bomb driver.
bomb driver.
Bomb
yeah.
driver, find it anywhere. Go bogey free for 17. I don't know who put that bunker there on the left on 18.
No, no.
Bad
And
course
then
design. Bad course
uh,
design.
Patrick Reed winning for the second time in the season. In was it Qatar?
It's
Aaron.
absolutely outrageous form, by the way. Win,
Yeah.
playoff, win.
I seen
Yeah.
a stat there today that so the top 10 points, so that the cutoff for the PGA Tour cards, he is like uh, uh, basically he's like 11th for what the target score was for last year to get a
Wow.
PGA Tour card already.
Yeah, he made it already.
Yeah, so he's pretty much
But
got his PGA Tour
you
card.
think
Just
about
well,
him even before Live, and this is like past when he won the Masters and he was at his what you would think is best, even though he's showing great form again now. He would play a handful of DP World Tour events, and I know the majors count towards it as well, but he'd always be up there in the race to Dubai rankings. He just seems to love playing European
Mhm.
golf. I mean, his swing, you can question his character, although, I mean, we can talk about maybe not today, but how actually this is probably a good thing for him. I think his reputation is going to get enhanced by playing DP World Tour events until August,
Definitely.
I think it is.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but his swing is pure. He chips it amazing.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
So, yeah, good for him. I mean, yeah, playoff wins not too bad to be fair at any level. I mean, to do that in like 3 medals a year is pretty good. Not every
Yeah.
playoff in a medal, but you know what I mean.
I don't
Yeah,
think anyone
well,
ever doubted his golf, but I
two
think
wins
it's
and a
more
playoff
down
loss.
because
Thanks for coming.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but this week we're going to talk about strokes gained and
Oh,
yeah.
one sec. One quick
All
thing
right, Rob,
before
go
we
on.
start going in. I just wanted a quick mention of Callum Hill bouncing
Oh
back from
no.
that nightmare playoff
Yeah.
and finishing second. How good is that?
Fun fact: in the last round, he doubled the fourth and had a shank. So there you go.
Yeah.
I was going to say he
Bounce
shanked
back.
it, yeah.
Did
He
he?
had a
He
shank
shanked
on the
OB
he
or
had,
something
he had a shank on the fourth hole and made double bogey, and then still came back from that.
and finished second. That I'll tell you the strength of the man. A
That's
Yeah.
lot
pretty
of
cool.
Maybe he was
many a
listening
man
to
would
the
have
podcast as
crumbled.
well because we were
He
talking
must have
about
been.
Jordan bouncing back from shanks at Lossiemouth. So maybe he just thought,
Maybe.
yeah, just one shot at a time, Jordan. That's what he was thinking.
We'll
Yeah.
be taking a commission soon, I think.
So no, yeah, it's definitely good to see him bounce back so quickly. After, I mean, for most players, that would, I wouldn't say destroy them, but you would expect maybe a 2 or 3 month slump after that where you don't have a lot of confidence. So fair play to him for coming back so quickly. So yeah, the episode today is going to be on strokes gained. Um, I was going to start with a definition of strokes gained just as an overview, and I didn't research it at all or get my friend chat, which I've now called Billy after Billy Foster because it basically caddies for me every week now.
You've
So
you've got to make a nickname for your chat as like as a caddy.
yeah,
There's got to be a caddy out there that's got a name similar to ChatGPT, and you've got a name. That'd be really fun.
and you know how I'm going to find out by
When you
asking
chat.
ChatGPT. So strokes
I don't think I
gained.
can name any on my ChatGPT any of some of my caddy names that I've had over the past.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had
Maybe
Rainbow, Lucky, and Curly in there.
So strokes gained is a golf metric that measures performance for every shot relative to a benchmark, quantifying how many strokes a player gained or lost. So, yes, the benchmark is actually quite important part. So we'll talk about how they measure it differently on the PGA Tour and Live, for example. But Jordan, you actually did your dissertation, something similar to this, didn't you?
Yeah, my dissertation was challenging the theory of drive for show, putt for dough. In terms of you just drive it for fun, and then if you putt well, you're going to win. which didn't really make sense in my head because if you're three off the tee every hole, then you're going to be putting for bogey, and if you're putting for par every time, you can hold every par putt, you're still not going to shoot under par. So it was one of those things where you split it into four categories, maybe five. So you've got strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach the green, strokes gained around the green, and strokes gained putting, and then that combines for a strokes gained total. So effectively, it was just using the top 100 players in each for, I think it was like a 20, 15, 20-year period, and basically working out where is your scoring average better if you are better off the tee or if you're a better putter or how much money you earn and stuff like that. So it kind of came out that in the grand scheme of things, that your approach to the green, which is your iron play mostly, is the most important or influential on your scoring average over a season. Then it was driving, then it was putting, then it was around the green. So you can gain the most strokes from your iron play. You can always lose the most as well. So it's got the biggest differential in terms of gaining shots on the field or losing shots on the field as well. It's quite it can get complicated if you get into like the science of the actual equation and how it all works. I don't remember my equation it's way over my head, but I still did it anyway.
I've
But
got the
essentially,
equation here. So
Of course you
the
do.
effectively the formula is start position value versus end position value and -1. So from that, it's like um you're basically you're comparing yourself to either for the PGA Tour stats they use ShotLink,
mhm,
which is like, did you say it started in 2004?
2004, yeah.
Yep. So they use ShotLink, which is for strokes gained. It's a strokes gained database, and essentially, if you hit a shot, it's going to compare it to these historical averages, um, back from, well, that's 20 years plus of data now. So, for example, Jordan, maybe a good one to start with as an example is like putting and how you plus minus strokes gained on a putt for like an 8 foot or 10 foot or whatever you think is the best way to give an example.
Um, it's tough because with putting, yeah, it's a tough way to explain it because putting is like it's not just a case of if you've got an 8 foot and you hold it, you're going to gain 0.2 strokes on like a PGA Tour field, right? Um, it takes into account uphill, right to left, left to right, you know, all the other different metrics that you do when you're reading the putt
I don't
in
think it
terms
does.
of
I don't think it does either.
No.
okay.
I think for strokes gained, it's
What did you get
literally
on your dissertation, John?
Uh,
right. Oh, well, scale it right back and make it simple. So one, if you gain plus 0.00, you basically for that shot, you are bang on what a PGA Tour player would expect. If you get plus zero point 0.2 on a shot, then you're zero point 0.2 ahead of a PGA Tour player for that shot. So, I mean, the way I use putting as example is me and Kemp were per putters. I think that's fair to say. So if we were to look at strokes gained for a round, um, my putting might be -2.5 on a PGA Tour player, which means that on average, a tour player for the amount of putts that I had would have scored 2.5 shots better than me. So it is a benchmark in a way. I know on PGA Tour they use ShotLink, so it's historical data going back to 2004. On Live, it's slightly different, so they do it on a week by week basis against the field. So it's not even for the tourist itself. It's like at the end of the week um they'll benchmark players against each other based on their performance that week. So
That
at
makes a
this,
bit more sense to do
yeah,
that. Yeah.
which is, although I mean, it is on a week by week basis to compare your performance. Although, if you look at historical data and look at strokes gained on certain golf courses, for I know a lot of the pundits and like Sky Sports will look at this on the lead up to the Open, for example, and pick out players based on their strokes gained in certain categories that they
Mhm.
think are going to do well at that golf course, even if they've never played there before. So you've got obviously more data helps. So you've got stats going back 2004. So the benchmark matters. So the benchmark could be to historical data on the PGA Tour, or it could be a benchmark relative to the field that week if you're playing on live. Um, so yeah, it's a measurement of how you compare against other players, essentially.
Yeah, I think to make it simple, the live guys they do their own thing. Okay.
Do you
Yeah,
think
they,
Who
it's
cares?
clear what the narrative is from us so far about live? I think it's a
But
bit ambiguous.
every other amateur player or pro, their benchmark is in all their stats in strokes gained is compared to the PGA Tour average. So, and to keep it simple, basically off the tee, they've just taken historical data and they found that 245 meters in the fairway off the tee is 0 0 strokes gained.
Hmm.
So that's 270 yards, something like that.
mhm.
So
So
if you hit it 270 yards in the fairway, that's 0 0. If you hit it 260 yards in the fairway, it's about zero point 0.1 for every 10 yards. So if you hit it, that's why hitting irons off the tee is not you're actually automatically going to lose strokes gained because you've not hit it 270 yards into the fairway. So if you hit an iron off the tee and you hit it 220 yards, you've hit it 50 yards shorter than what's 0 0 strokes gained, and you're nearly losing about I think it's actually 0 0.1 every 20 yards. So it's like you're losing about a quarter of a shot hitting a 220 yard shot,
Mhm.
and that's if you hit the fairway only. If you hit the
Yeah.
rough with an iron, you lose even more shots.
Yeah.
And then for the approach, what how they calculate it is that it's 5% from the fairway is 5% of your distance. That's your 0 0 strokes gain. So if you've got 150 yards, 5% would be 7.5 yards. So if you hit it to 7.5, which is like 22 feet, 23 feet from 150 yards, that's strokes gain zero.
yeah, which that stat in itself will probably surprise people.
Yeah. So when you're at 150 yards and you hit it to 22 feet, your PGA Tour average.
Yeah,
It's 5% from the fairway. Then from the rough, it's even worse. It's 7.5%. So if you've got 100 yards and you're in the rough and you hit it to 22 feet, that's PGA Tour average.
That'll do.
Yeah. So, and if you've got 200 yards in the rough, that's PGA Tour average is about 15 yards. So that's like 45 feet
Mhm.
from 200 yards in the rough. So it just shows you that, like, yeah, the guys aren't that, your approach play, that's where you can actually gain the most as well.
Yeah. I
Because
mean
if you're
It's
that.
really good in
it's
your approaches,
it's TV golf, isn't it? It's you
Yeah.
see it on TV because they're always showing the leaders and they're always hitting great shots because they're playing the best golf.
hmm
And then
exactly.
if you actually go to an event and you kind of see all this like average golf or what you think is like, average golf being played. And, if you hit a 7 iron from 180 yards and you hit to 30 feet, 25 feet, 20 feet, where it's a great shot. And then you might see one guy stick a 7 iron to 3 feet and he'll gain serious, serious strokes because he's probably going to tap in. So it's like and then that's why the strokes gain total is good because it's like a cumulative, like, of like the whole, like, not just like the whole hole, but then each round and each tournament as well. So, like Scotty Scheffler's strokes gain total number one probably has been since he was born, to be fair to him. But it's just even when he was putting, not putting great. But in terms of your biggest gains and losses, Rob's right. It's your iron play that can gain you the most strokes because you've got the biggest room for improvement or the biggest margin to gain shots, basically. And you can kind of relate that back to putting where the holes really, really small compared to a green from 150 yards, right? You'd like to think you're probably going to hit the green from 150 yards instead of hole a 30 footer. So it's one of those things where, but you can still gain strokes by missing a putt if you're like
Yeah.
miles away
yeah,
because it
But it's
reduces the chance of
yeah.
missing the next one.
I mean that should tell people that you can actually kind of gain strokes on a PGA Tour play by aiming at the middle of the green.
which
Yeah.
actually, which actually exaggerates Jordan's previous point about one shot at a time matters because these incremental
Hmm.
differences. I don't want to skip ahead because we're talking about how like the takeaways from this, but like that's why on a shot by shot basis you should give your shot full attention because over the course of a round or a tournament or a year, those incremental differences that Rob has spoken about before, about like talking about with coaches and stuff, like it does matter, and it does, yeah, give you a bit of confidence that okay, if I hold this putt, I'm going to be ahead of what a PGA Tour player would expect.
This is where
Yeah,
strokes gained probably ahead of like traditional stats in terms of like, for example, you could hit 18 greens, but you
Yeah,
could
it's a
still
good
lose
point.
strokes. You could still lose strokes approach the green.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because
You could hit 14 fairways and
yeah,
you're losing strokes gained because you've hit irons. I think we calculated with the Swiss team. If you hit iron on your course 6 times off the tee, you're guaranteed to lose strokes off the tee. There's no way you can even gain strokes off the tee if you hit iron 6 times.
well, if you hit iron long enough, Rob, then maybe you might get some strokes.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe Chris Gotterup is a different
Yeah,
story, but
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, Jordan, about the categories. So on the PGA Tour website, for example, if you look at the stats, you will have most greens hit, most fairways hit. But I think we all agree when we look at golfers to, if I'm looking at the Masters, for example, to put a bet on the Masters, I would personally look at, I think that there's always categories around Augusta. You do have to be a good putter around Augusta. And I think its approach is the next as well because of all the small landing areas you have to land it into.
yeah.
Um, so
But if you
yeah.
can
you always
humor us
look at
for a
those two.
second, if you can humor us for a second, Ethan, check who's number one in accuracy off the tee. You see that on the PGA Tour website.
I can get that
Yeah,
for you.
this was one of those things that I said when I did my dissertation is that when you looked at the top 10 guys strokes gained putting, you knew like one or two. And then you looked at the
Yeah.
top 10 guys approach the green, you knew pretty much everyone, maybe bar one.
Hmm.
So when the fact that you
And
know the players and you know who they are, you know they're doing well, you know that's probably the area of the game that you should probably look at trying to improve the most as an amateur golfer. But
So yeah, so I was going to say, so the highest, this is the current, well, actually, no, look at last season because obviously we're just started this season. So 2025, this proves the point perfectly, Rob. Driving accuracy percentage, the highest player on the PGA Tour is Takumi Kanaya.
and that was last year, was it?
That was 2025, 74%.
go for
And
the top. Go for the top 10. Go for the top
so
10.
So
Takumi T Kanaya, and then Aaron Rai. Um, then we've got Paul Peterson.
so you said Takumi Kanai was the most accurate golfer on tour in hitting fairways.
Yes, driving.
Guess what number he is in strokes gained off the tee last season, and it's out of 180.
No idea.
He is 100 on the dot strokes gained off the tee last year,
Oh, and he's most
So,
accurate.
and he's
so
the
he's
most
worse than
accurate.
average by. He's the
Hitting
worst.
74% of fairways.
This is a
Yeah,
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 perfect example. So you could be the most accurate off the tee in terms of fairways hit,
yeah.
but
Ethan,
lose
who's
strokes.
last on driving accuracy? Just to give us a bit of a
Last,
comparison. See if they're on here.
Frankie Cappan the third.
How do you spell that?
Here, actually, while we're here, 177th
Oh yeah,
is
he's
Roy
last.
McIlroy.
177.
Really? And
Roy
he's
McIlroy, and he won the Grand Slam last year. He was 177th in driving accuracy.
and
Yeah,
he's
he's
from what
11.
I'd say
He's
naturally
11th
best
strokes
driver in the
gained off
world.
the tee. 11th.
There you
So
go.
there you go.
11th
There
strokes
we go.
see. That's it.
So he's basically fourth last in accuracy and he's 11th gaining strokes on the field.
I'm going to just say that again so I can clip it, to be honest. So Roy McIlroy is 177th off the tee in driving accuracy, but he's
He's
11th in strokes gained
11th.
off the tee.
Clip that.
You are kidding me.
Nah, say
Say it
it
again.
I'll say it
One more
again.
time.
One more time. I'm going to say it
Yeah,
really
I'll mute.
quickly.
I'll mute.
For those in the
Rory
back,
Rory McIlroy is 177th off the tee for driving accuracy, but he's 11th on tour for strokes gained off the tee.
Wow.
That is
Never heard
impressive.
that before.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's a good example of how green, sorry, that's fairways hit versus strokes gained off the tee. You've got greens hit versus approach strokes gained. So I think it's widely accepted that strokes gained is more reliable than those traditional metrics. That's why, you play certain courses and you're like actually hitting it into the rough there as maybe a bit of an advantage. And people go, oh no, hitting the fairway is always the advantage, but it's not. It's based on
it's
the
not.
situation. If you're further up, say the fairway runs out and you're like 5 yards into the rough, I mean, you'd rather do that than hit a 2 iron off the tee and have 40 yards back. That's basically the point we're making. Um,
You're you're more accurate being 100 yards in the rough than 120 yards in the fairway.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we were talking before about like the Aon risk reward hole and how traditionally you would lay up to like this is the traditional, and even though we're not that old, we're mid-20s. Rob's creeping a bit higher than that, but we're in our 20s, and like I remember as we talked
We're in
about
our 20s.
before, you're being brought up on fairways first, distance second, and also a popular narrative was lay up to a comfortable yardage, and that's just not the case at all
No.
because if you've got a 320-yard par four and you can hit your driver 300 and you've got a chance of maybe getting there, then you're better doing that and having an awkward chip or even a bunker shot. Because if you're a decent player and you're hitting at 300 yards, or even if you're not and you're in the bunker, then your bunker shot, even if it's a per bunker shot to 20 feet, I can
Yeah, exactly.
guarantee if you lay up to 120 yards, you would
Yeah,
take 20 feet from 120 yards.
Yeah. You can
yes.
still miss the green from 120.
Hmm.
You know. And that's why
Exactly.
middle of the green never moves, even from 50 yards.
Exactly. So let's move on to why it matters. We've kind of touched on it a little bit, but um I've got some points here. So Rob and Jordan, Rob, how do you, and I think you've talked about this before, but maybe just give us a recap. As a player and with your coach, how do you use strokes gained to inform your year, your tournament, however you apply it?
Yeah, so like we'll take the easiest example. So I just played these two events down in South Africa, and we've just put in a new driver head for this season. Remember how I said last year? So you set your goals first. We set a goal that we wanted driver to be, we wanted to be strokes gain driving because I've got a lot of power and speed, and we could feel like we could turn that into a weapon. And so after these 8 rounds, we've been able to compare to my previous metrics of strokes gained in 2024, 2025 didn't play much, but you still have a small sample size there. You can actually then see after these 8 rounds, we had a bit of a debrief yesterday of then you can see what your strokes gained is actually even through these 8 rounds with a new driver head compared to what I was doing before. And I've gained a quarter of a shot per round
Hmm.
with this different driver head. So it's really been it's just gives you proof that what you're doing is you're on the right track
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
basically, and it's you're not guessing, you're measuring, and what is measured can be improved as we've been told our whole lives. So it gives you just a way to assess, analyze, and um, make decisions based off that.
Yeah. And it's one of
Pretty much.
those that it's hard to maybe if people haven't seen strokes game before to explain just how big and 0.25 of a shot doesn't seem like a lot, but for a tournament that's a shot. If you play 25 tournaments a year, that's 25 shots essentially that you could be
Yeah.
saving. I mean, it is a huge, I mean, 0.25 is huge in any category.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important to understand it's important to understand your stats as well. I think we've probably touched on this before that you've got to understand that sometimes your stats might look better than they are, they might look worse than they actually are. So for example, if you're losing strokes off the tee, but you're gaining loads of strokes in the approach, if you suddenly start to hit it further and more accurate off the tee, then you might start to lose strokes in approach
Got it.
just because how it kind of like meshes together.
Mhm.
And it's like same with the traditional stats. You know, how many putts did you have today? Oh, I had 30, but you could still technically gain strokes time
It
by
should
having
still be
30.
fairly accurate though, because the strokes gained is per shot. So even if you've got like 10, say in a 18 holes, you've got eight mid irons in, your strokes gained for that category, you should be able to see, and we'll talk about the apps and stuff you can use, but you should be able to see from like 150 to 175 how many shots you're gaining or losing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're, but I know what you mean. Some courses like you're just not hitting as many 7 or 6 irons, for example. So you're not going to maybe get as big a data range.
So
So
there's
you're not going to
less
get like,
Yeah.
chance to, yeah, to gain shots.
yeah. So, but also like putting because of the volume of data, your main you're probably going to be hitting, depending on what putting day you have, between 28 and 36 putts. Hopefully, no more than that. Although I'm known to have a few. Obviously, over time, I can see what you mean, like because the amount of data is there that it's maybe a better reflection than you had two 4 irons all day and you hit two average shots. It doesn't mean that your 4 iron is just terrible. It's just you only had two
Yeah.
4 irons that day.
Analyzing stats, going deep into the stats. Like Rob, you use up game, don't you, as well?
Yeah.
With my up game stats in terms of my approach, it can give you like diamonds in terms of where you miss it to your target, which
Hmm.
I find really important as well because you know it's one of those things where you can set a target, then you hit the shot, but your target might not be straight at the flag, but you've pulled it to the flag, which is going to look good on your strokes gain numbers, but look bad on your actual iron to target, dispersion basically. So it's important that, like we said before, course management and picking the right shot can be really important because if you know where you're more likely to miss it in terms of percentage of shots, then you're probably going to aim slightly a bit more smart in terms of if I do miss, between 125 and 150, if I missed it 35% short right, which is
Right.
more than any other section of like my diamond, then I'm probably going to err on the side of caution of
Yeah.
that.
So you can adjust
So
then. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, exactly. That's why stats are really important because they can help you in course management as well for stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you can look into putting. Are you better on right to lefters? Are you better on left to righters? Are
Yeah.
you just better on straight putts? Because you might be a better right to left. Usually, most people are, better at right to lefters or left to righters than the other.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at segments of a green where the flag is, which usually have like a pin sheet, or you'll know where the flag is, you can kind of judge on that where you kind of want to hit, a wedge or an iron or stuff like that as well.
That's
And
interesting.
that all goes back to course management, which we spoke about last week, why it's just so important. Like strokes gained feeds into that. So not only your decision making on the
Yeah,
course, but like
it
your
gives you,
percentage. Oh,
Oh,
Jordan, we lost you.
yeah, it gives
it's
you
still going.
evidence. It gives you evidence for your decision there.
Yeah, it was. We touched on it with like, we
Ah,
were saying Nick McCarthy was hitting a 4 iron into a green and starting and he left because he knew I'm assuming he knows he can draw his 4 iron very easily, so he's picking targets based on his miss, and I guess that's what stroke means. So it'll show you in the data.
Yeah. I was going before we move on to the last part, which
mm,
is I suppose the application of it for I wasn't going to say the everyday golfer, but yeah, the everyday golfer, maybe guys similar to our level, mine and Kempo's level. But Rob, I was going to ask you just out of curiosity. We talk about on tour how like certain players we go, oh, this course is going to sit them this week. Do you know going into a week whether that course is going to suit you or not based on your course, like your strokes gain data? Will you have an inkling of that if it suits your game or not?
You can, yeah. So they go. There's a bigger deep dive on this on the main tour. You know how Eduardo Molinari, he basically tracked his own stats for every event when he was on tour for like 15 years, and then
wow.
he decided that he would like what Matt Fitzpatrick does, where he records every shot.
Hmm.
Well, Molinari, he created his own software device and his own coding to actually map out this like strokes gained himself and for every course. And so then what he did, he then decided was like, well, this is fantastic. Then he decided to make a business out of it, and he's become kind of this stats guy for the main tour. And maybe a lot of guys ask him, and what he does is every week he sends in for the course, he sends in a report on like basically, um, what are the three keys to play this week, so that they'll like last week in Qatar, it'll uh, be really good between with like a 270 to 290 off the tee shot. Be really good for with a 130 to 150 yard shot, and be really good on medium short sided chips.
Hmm.
And the data will tell them straight away if you're good at that, you're probably going to top 10
Yeah,
Wow.
in three
great,
metrics.
great for betting, by the way. If you could find a player who hits all
Mm,
three
Yeah.
categories.
Well, it's amazing how like strokes gained is it's obviously a measurement, it's a benchmark, but it's also a predictor tool
Yes.
It
and a
is a yeah.
probability. It's like if you, I mean, saying hit the middle of the green is a perfect example, is the probability. It's not only just a measurement to say you'll gain this much or you might be baseline. It's the probability of you then having a two putt, like it all comes together.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
like I say, if you've got someone whose approach plays good, the holing out well from inside 10 feet, and the scrambling's good going into Augusta, the and if they're in form, you've got a good chance that they're going to play well. It's kind of it
yeah,
feels obvious.
it's basically suggesting that as long as the rest of their categories stay around average, it could be a bit better, bit worse. But it's like if those are the categories they shine in, and this we're talking about before about keeping your strengths, if they push on even more than that with those and keep the other ones relatively similar, then I mean statistically, probability wise, you are going to gain strokes.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these reports with Eduardo are incredible. Like guys will get a detailed if you're working with him and you're paying
Big money.
big money to work with him. Basically, you'll get a report and he'll have your strokes gain data. So, for example, your one, he'll have um, your data for exact like that number 130 to 150 yards. He'll be like, you need to work on this week on Monday to Wednesday, or you're not going to top 10. You can literally tell them if you don't do this, then you can you're not going to come close to have a chance.
So
So then boys know exactly what to work on. Monday to Wednesday is going to be really dialing in 130 to 150. Gonna have to level up, move up a gear, because you don't have that much time Monday to Wednesday. You can't work on every part of the game. If you
Yeah,
think of golf, I think I read somewhere where you've got there's 20 parts of the game you can work on,
Mhm.
yeah,
and that's
exactly.
more that's even macro,
Yeah.
uh, macro stuff. It's not even going into detail. There's 20 wide ranges of stuff you can work on, and so what this can just make sure you're working on the right stuff, before
Yeah,
because the work is if guys are grinding on their driver, and for example last week we played Royal Cape Golf Club, and you could be grinding on your driver the whole Monday to Wednesday, but actually in the event you're only hitting about it's only five drivers and they're not too demanding. You have to be really good with your three wood
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah,
and you're maybe launching a two iron or like your 270 280 yard shot.
yeah,
And so and like it was mostly like a draw 270 yard shot. So this is what the report can tell you is like you need to go on the range and work on your 270 yard draw shot. That's how detailed it is on tour.
Love that.
It's not just the guys with the talent or, if you're better than others. It's having the right shots for the right courses and being able to practice those Monday through Wednesday. And
yeah.
that's what stroke gain has really
Mhm.
changed the game with.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny, like you said, it's a lot of money. I don't know how much money it is. Maybe you do know, but it's one of these for a business. It's like an investment. You're basically getting market analysis to say
It's
this
massive.
is the external environment, which is the course,
Yeah,
the condition. Maybe I don't know if he factors in the conditions, like past years, the year that year, but it's like to say, based on everything, this is the best advice I can give you for
It
that
is.
week.
This is
Of
how
yeah,
you
what,
can
yeah,
suit your game to fit this market effectively.
yeah,
absolutely. And he'll have a detailed report when if wind is blowing off the south, this is the strategy that you should
wow,
use with your data. If the wind is blowing from the north, this is the strategy you should use on these tee boxes. And then it'll have a detailed on every hole. If the wind's off the north, this is what your predicted like score will be on this course, on this hole for the week. So it'll be like if it's a par four, it'll give you wind from the north. If you hit driver, your predicted score will be 4.1. But if you hit three wood, it'll be 3.95, and it'll be two iron, it'll be 4.3. So if it's wind from the north, it's you should be hitting a three wood. That'll give you the best chance. Doesn't mean that you know, loads of other stuff comes into play. Like if you still have to hit the shots, but then three wood will give you the best chance of shooting on average 4.95 compared to driver 4.1. And then
Yeah.
that's how detailed it is with the stats through this strokes gain. But then you'll have like maybe 40-50% of guys are like that. Maybe 20% are also in the stats, but not as detailed because they prefer feel golf and feel, like really more making gut decisions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you'll have a few players, not many, but maybe 10% who will really just be like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's it.
to our
Yeah.
audio listeners, he just put
Yeah,
his
it is what
licked
he's
his
thinking, yeah.
finger and put it in the air.
But I guess
Uh,
that's a good thing about golf as well as a sport is that strokes gain is great. and some people say that it kind of takes not the magic out of the game, but it becomes this kind of very stats heavy sport. But you look at Callum Hill trying to see out an event, Matsuyama tried to see out an event. Strokes game goes out the window. You just got to see out an event, and it's not. It's hard to think that when Callum Hill is shanking it in a playoff, like
Yeah.
Well, that's
he
that's
wasn't
the
thinking
point.
about
It's a
strokes.
predictor. It's no guarantee, but it's like it gives you an advantage. It gives you a statistical advantage. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah,
That's the whole
Um,
point.
you talk
Yeah.
about probability and obviously talk about, I'm not going to repeat it in case I get it wrong, but the three doors and like there's two donkeys behind the door and one's got a car, and if you open one door, then your probability increases and all this kind of stuff. It's just a predictor. It's not a guarantee, but if you've got any, if you've got
hang on a minute.
any advantage, no, I
Are
need to
you one
show
of the
you.
Skip on,
donkeys?
skip on.
Like, God.
I'll just bring up a picture of a donkey right now.
In the
But
Donkey
pile of
and a
analogies,
cup.
that was the worst one.
A
but
donkey and a cup,
yeah,
isn't it?
so we'll move on. On that note, we'll move on to the final part, which is how golfers can use it. So obviously we've talked about it maybe from an elite standpoint and how you apply it, but maybe for this category we should start about how like obviously people don't need to work all these stats out on their own. For example, they don't need to um write all them down, put them into a calculator and I'll give them their strokes gained. There are apps out there to help you. So Jordan and Rob, what's the ones you used?
We use Upgame. There's different variations. They've got like a free version, like a player version, and then like an elite version. You just get different detailed stats depending on which one you get. But the baseline, well, the free version gives you like a baseline kind of thing.
Mhm.
Then that the more detailed version goes into misses, clubs that you're using, breaks on putts, lies, very, really, really, where the wind's coming from and stuff like that. So it's pretty detailed and um, pretty essential, I think, if you want to get better, to be honest.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I would recommend it to anyone who plays golf to even just try the free version on Upgame a couple of times, just to at least give you an idea of what it's all about. After your round, just write on your scorecard if you're hitting from the rough or from the fairway or from the fairway bunker. You don't have to do every metric, but you can just fill in, yeah, or you could do one full round and actually have a look at, maybe you thought your approach play was decent, and then you come in and you look, oh, it's -2, and you're like,
Hmm.
oh, actually that was terrible.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
it takes the guessing out because I feel like so many people are guessing on the golf course. They're guessing their practice, they're guessing after they play what the problem was, and it's just a way to finally actually put some numbers and some a bit of substance to what you're doing.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
basically quantifying a shot. I mean, you've got subjective, which is, oh, that's a good shot or bad shot, or like say a 15 handicapper hitting a 6 iron to 30 feet and being disappointed. That's subjective. But if you got stats, then actually I gained this much or I lost this much. I think it's also I used TaylorMade. It's like a round TaylorMade My Round Pro, something like that. It's a TaylorMade app. It's free as well, and I don't know how Upgame works exactly, but it's a Google Maps view, and you just move the dial, so it's not 100% accurate in terms of like exact blade of grass on the course, but I feel like it's if you've got yardages and you're using a Bushnell and you know roughly where the pin was, it gives you a good idea, plus or minus to like maybe 10 yards. So
Yeah,
I mean, a completely flawed information is obviously useless, but I feel like there's an understanding that most of the people listening to this podcast have full-time jobs. They've already played around of golf. They maybe don't, the actual thought of taking stats is quite daunting. So it does, I can say from experience, it took me about 10 minutes after a round to do it. And obviously sooner the better because you remember the yardages, the exact lie you had, the whereabouts you were in a bunker, which bunker you were in, things like that. But yeah, just on the stats part, it's quite good as well. I find where you look at the recap for the round and it'll say your approach was -1. Like, oh, I thought it was really good today. And then you look and there's like one shot on a hole, you had a terrible one. And then it kind of informs you, well, you actually had six decent ones and one terrible one. So it doesn't mean that your all-round iron game is terrible. It just means you hit one bad shot. But if you hit five bad shots and one good one, then obviously it tells you that there is a fundamental issue there. So I feel like you can go into as much detail as you want, but at least it's there. How you scrutinize it is kind of up to you.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's a lot easier to use what it feels like when we're talking about it. It does sound a bit complicated with all these percentages and numbers, but it's literally you kind of put in your round through Google Maps. It feels like it's like a beginner's kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then at the end you get these really simple numbers, and you're like, oh, well,
Mhm.
that's it. That's so easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the way I can like relate it to is I know a lot of people in Scotland use hole 19, which is
Mhm.
if they've not played a course before, even their home course, it's basically like a drag tool to say, oh, from I'm beside this bunker, I've got 150 yards in. That is essentially what this app is. It just based on the fact that it's in the bunker or in the rough from 150 yards, it'll then calculate your strokes gained for you. So
So
that's
it's
how
it's
easy it
not
is.
like kind of a golf data lab kind of setup where you've got to input numbers. It's now kind of a bit more intuitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's obviously that's what we would recommend for the not even casual golfers, like for us as well. We
Mhm.
take it fairly seriously.
Hmm.
So it's
Very
definitely worthwhile. Um, I was gonna just kind of end by saying this is obviously compared to PJ Tour stats, but do you think it's worthwhile for like a 10 handicapper trying to get to five? There is certain benchmarks that are set up for like five handicap, strokes gained, 10 handicap, 50 handicap. Rob and Jordan or Campbell, maybe you've used them before. Do you think there's merit in using those?
100%.
Mhm.
100%. What you yeah, measuring things is so important. And then you take the guessing out of it, and then you can just look up where should I be as a five handicap, and then it'll show you I'm losing 8 shots off the tee, but only 2 shots off the on the irons and 2 shots on the greens.
Yeah, I
So
guess it doesn't really matter what benchmark you're using as long as the benchmark's consistent. So if you're using the BJ Torn number and just move close towards it,
Yeah,
that's pretty
the
much
reason
it.
I say that is
yeah,
because on the TaylorMade app, I don't know if it's on UpGame, but you can pick stats based on a handicap or pro. So there's like pro, which they put down as +5, scratch 5, 10, 15. And it's quite interesting. Like if I have a poor putting round, I actually get a bit not negative, but I go, oh, so at what handicap am I zero strokes gained for the day for putting if I'm minus 2.5 for a pro? Does that mean I'm still losing shots as a scratch golfer? And I think that like that's the kind of detail I would go into. I wouldn't go into any further than that. I would look maybe at a particular area and go, oh, that doesn't make sense, then go into the numbers. But I would look at it and go, okay, I'm ahead for a scratch golfer today. So I'm going to compare this to a pro and work out was I on par for a pro, or is there other categories that kind of are they far further ahead, much further ahead in approach play than they are scratch golfers? So I would recommend that app because it does all the work for you and is quite interesting.
Mhm. Yep.
Cool. Well, I don't know if that was 45 minutes in the end. Probably
Cool.
wasn't.
I thought
But
it was.
hopefully, even though we kind of went a roundabout way about at the start trying to explain what strokes gained was, by the end people understand what it is. Essentially, yeah, it's a benchmark of how each shot compares to a PGA Tour Pro. Live have their own thing because they do their own thing, isn't that right, Rob? But
I agree.
in general, it's a database of shots from PGA Tour pros going back over 20 years now, and it gives you a way to predict um yeah, well, it gives you your performance based in those stats, and then you can use that as a predictive tool on a tournament or something to work on. You might realize you're further behind in certain categories than others. And you also might realize that you're giving yourself a hard time when you shouldn't be. So that's always the positive spin on it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope you all learned something. Make sure you follow us on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, and hopefully we'll get another guest on soon. Um, Rob, maybe one of your friends. I'll put the onus on you.
all good. We'll do that.
So yeah, apart from that, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Cheers, guys.
See ya.
Cheers.
Cheers.